In this video, I'm going to show you how to delete a Mongo document from a MongoDB instance using Go. If you're just looking for the code that you need, here it is on my screen. I've included a link to the written tutorial for this in the description below. Feel free to copy it. It's a pretty simple function that you need to write. Pretty much just a filter, passing the context to the filter. If you're looking for more than that, that's what we're doing today. I have some boilerplate code that is a good starting off point. I'll kind of explain the boilerplate code a little bit. We'll set it up. We'll get it running. We're gonna have to do some authentication. As soon as we get that done, we'll insert some data into our database. We'll then delete that data using the next endpoint, and I'll kind of walk through and explain how it works. It's pretty straightforward. So bear with me here. As I just mentioned, there's a written version of this here. I've included a description below. If you prefer that, feel free to use that. So in the description as well, you'll find a link out to this Go boilerplate code. It's on my GitHub. If you use it, I'd appreciate if you start it. It just lets me know that people are using it, so it's worth maintaining. So what's gonna happen today is I'm gonna download this. So I'm just gonna go code and then download zip. I'm gonna put it into some sort of working space. So for me, in my case, I'm gonna put it on my desktop, and then we're gonna open it up in our favorite editor. So I've opened it up. It's here in the folder called Mongo deleted. Lives on my local machine. I'm gonna use Golang. It's my editor of choice. You can use anything. I'm gonna open project. Head to my desktop, Mongo delete, and then I'm gonna open up this project. So I'm using a few things, and I'm making these assumptions so you have them on your computer. So Go, I'm using version 1.15. I'm using Mongo. I think it's like 4.3 or something like that, 4.4. I'm assuming it's on your computer, it's running, and it can accept connections from localhost 2017. If you don't know what I mean, essentially unauthenticated endpoints. We're doing local development. We don't need a username and password. We don't need SSL or anything like that. Lastly, we're going to visualize the data using Mongo Compass. Again, you download it off their website. It's free to use. And then last, I'm going to use Postman as my REST client. You can use anything. You can use curl if you want. The written tutorial actually has the curl command there, but I'm going to use Postman, and that's how we're going to interact with our API. I'm doing all this on a Mac, by the way, if you haven't noticed. So here it is. This is the Go boilerplate code that we just imported. There's a few parts to this. So we have a user authentication side of the project, and then we have a CRUD app. The CRUD app is revolved around the idea of cars. So car like a vehicle that you drive. So there's, create, delete, update, get, list as all your options. Then there's the other side where it's like user sign up, sign in, and log out. In order to interact with a piece of like a car, there's a user tied to it, so we'll have to sign up first. If you head to main.go, so this is like the authorization endpoint, the cores. We're going to change so I'm just under function and main. We're going to change the DB name to be delete DB, just so that it can be unique. I've done this demo a few times. And then if you actually go into DB and db.go, you can see the Mongo connection string right there. So if you want to put a username and password, you modify the string, but for me it's localhost 27017. And if that doesn't connect and you don't see the printouts for saying connected to Mongo, then you have an issue connecting. This failed to connect DB, probably like it's not running, or you don't accept unsecure connections or something like that. So we set up all these these parts of code. I'll explain them in a second. And then here are endpoints. So /user, and then there's user-based endpoints, and then /cars, and they're car-based endpoints. The way the code is structured, we have handlers, models, repositories, and services. Handlers are your HTTP handling of HTTP requests. So grabs a request body, maps it to a Go struct, passes it into a service. Your service is the business logic, do X, Y, and Z. Your repositories is your data access layer. So you can think of that as how you interact with Mongo. And then lastly, it's models, which is kind of used throughout. And that's just a representation of different structs. So think if you're coming from a different language, it'd be like a class. And I have a video on explaining this whole code base, so I'm not going to go into any more depth than that. There is one thing we have to do in order to use the signup. This code base does not have password encryption, so it is storing your password in plain text, so don't use that in production. So I went to services and then user service. I scroll down to the isValidPassword function. It always returns false because it's always in plain text. And I'm trying to uncomment this, and we're going to return true. Just because it's a demo, it's okay that I'm storing a plain text password on my local machine. Low risk. But again, if you're using this for actual production, use bEncrypt. Great option for encrypting passwords. It's just not included in this project. So we've now dealt with that. The first thing we're going to do is run our API and sign up. And then after that, we're going to insert some data into the database. So I'm going to open my Postman here. Take that back. I'm going to open up my terminal first. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And Postman's opening up in the background there. I'm going to go to Mongo, delete my project. Mongo deletes my project folder. And I'm going to do go, run, and Postman got open. Okay. Go, run, and then main.go. And that's going to start up my API. So as you can see, I'm connected to Mongo. All my endpoints were good to go. Dismiss this. I've actually saved these endpoints. They're pretty simple, so you can copy and paste them out. The first thing we're going to do is do a post request to localhost 8080. That's what our API is running on. /user/signup/ our headers are content type, and then application JSON. The body is email and password. I use raw, and then it's a JSON object. I'm gonna hit send, and it's gonna return back an auth token. Oh, there it is. Keep this somewhere. You need it throughout the project. Just how we authenticate. Kind of tells us who owns the data. Next, we're going to use the cars endpoint. We're going to actually insert data into the database. So again, I have this saved, but I'm just going to copy my token here. So it's localhost 8080/cars/. Again, it's a post request. I'm going to head to my headers here. You don't need version. So content type, and then application JSON, authorization, and the bearer space, and then paste my token in there. Do not put version here. I was just testing something out, so I'm actually going to delete that. Lastly, body, again, a raw. It's a JSON object. There's a make, a model, and a year. That's all you need. So I'm just going to hit send, and that should save a card to our database. Let's head over to Mongo Compass here to just see our data and be able to visualize it. I'm going to connect, since I connect, no username, no password, I can just hit connect there. And then we get the delete DB right here. So as we just did, there's one user, we just signed up, there's one session, it returned back to us a session, and there's one car. I'm gonna click the car, and this is the one we just inserted. So as you can see, it ties my email to it. It has an object ID, make, model, and year. We're gonna delete this one. So let's talk about deleting. Deleting is pretty simple. It's really nice because you just need a filter, so you can actually play around with Mongo Compass if you want to try building out your filter. So for example, I want to delete all Ferraris, let's say, so I just go do make, and then I just say Ferrari, and everything that gets returned back would get deleted. Not right now in Compass, but like for building queries. So Jaguar, for example, nothing gets returned back, but that's like how I delete all the Jaguars out of the database. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to use our document ID. And so in main.go, if you look at this endpoint here, it's the cars API delete/ID. We do some validation, so this makes sure that I'm the only one who can modify my data. And then we call the delete function within the cars handler. So let's check out the cars handler. Scroll down here. Delete is right at the bottom. So what we're doing is pulling out the session out of the gin context. Since we already have a validate auth, it should be there. We grab the cars ID from the URL parameter. We just saw that 10 seconds ago. We call the delete service. It may return back an error. If it does, we present that error to the user. Often you wouldn't actually present this error back to the user. You keep it hidden, but since we're in development mode, it's okay. And if it doesn't return back an error, we just return back a 200 and we say, deleted car. So let's check out the delete service method. Again, we just actually skip pretty much all of it. There's no logic here. And since we store that email on the actual object, it kind of guarantees that there's no special logic. We just kind of, I do this here just because often applications aren't this simple. You can actually make this endpoint even simpler. You can just do return and then delete all this, because this returns the same number of arguments as here and there's no additional logic. So we pass in the email and the car ID. First thing to note, if we go back to our cars data, this is not a string, this is an object ID, like a primitive type. Therefore, we have to convert the string that we have into that object ID. If it at all goes well, we begin to build that query that I was talking about. So again, if you want to delete all Jaguars, for example, you would build that query here. In this case, we want to build ID is the document ID, and the email is, in my case, my email. I'm just gonna head back to Compass just so I can show you this. So it'd just be like, so our query is gonna be this, where it's object ID. It's gonna look like that, and it's gonna delete this one object here. Yeah, and so when we do this filter, so this DB here is the Mongo client. So db.go, it's this same Mongo client dot collection, which is our cars, and then we're gonna just say delete one. You just say delete if you want to delete multiple of them. Oh, sorry, it's delete many. So delete one, we just want to delete, since it's an object ID, we know for a fact that we're only deleting one object. And then we use our filter. So we pass in the context and our filter, and then it returns the delete result, and it returns an error. I don't care about the delete result, I just care if it threw an error or not. So if it doesn't throw an error, so if it throws an error, we return the error. If it doesn't, we just return nil. And that's pretty much it. It's a pretty simple function. So let's try running that. We're gonna pass in that object ID, and it should delete the one piece of data from our database. So once again, new endpoint. It's gonna be delete localhost 8080/cars and /object ID. This is not right. This is the wrong one. So I'm just gonna go in here, copy the object ID. It's right here. I'll paste it in here. I'm gonna go to headers, content type, application JSON, authorization bearer, and then I know for a fact that's the wrong token. So I'm just gonna copy it from my other request. I got the token now. So bearer space token. Body in this case doesn't matter, it's empty. Should do that. And so I'm gonna hit send, and this should delete the one item from our database. So it says delete car. I hit refresh here. So there's no objects. I'm gonna actually return the filter. Still no objects. So it worked as expected. I have videos around all the other endpoints. I also have a pretty in-depth description, explanation of this Go boilerplate code. Feel free to check those out. Please subscribe. I come out with a new video every week. Thank you for watching.